Hello everyone, Rufi here with another play and explain video for you guys. As you can see, today we're not doing a play and explain, but rather a study session where I will review some of the hands that I've played that I marked because I thought they were interesting. And yeah, I want to show you how I go through that process, checking if I played them well in theory, but also if I use the correct exploits in my opinion or not. And hopefully we can all learn something together. The hands that I picked are some are big pots, some are small pots, just depending on whether I found the spot curious or didn't know what to do. And yeah, mix of 200 and 500 NL. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and let's get right into it. So I have the board selected, but I didn't look at the solution yet. The first one, replay the hand quickly, is a blind v blind spot. Opponent calls, I go for a check, he checks back. Now on this turn here, I think first of all, I think he's gonna stab a lot of board pairs on the flop already. Also a lot of his 5x and 3x I think are gonna stab on the flop. So I think this turn looks worse than it actually is, and I think we want to do a lot of block betting here with any one pair hands to get value from worse one pair hands and deny equity from all of his range, because even his absolute trash here has chop equity on a5. So that's what I did. He called again. I think he would raise a lot of 5x here. 7-5 would probably always step on the flop, so I think he's gonna have a lot of showdown value hands in his range. And when I go for another block bet on the river, the 8, not changing too much, of course. Backdoor flush draw definitely has those in his range. Sometimes he goes for a quite large raise, where at this point he only represents the backdoor flush draw. And my thinking in game was here that it's easier for him to have too many one diamond hand compared to enough suited hands that he can have here for value. So even though I think my hand is probably a 4 in theory, if he's over bluffing, I don't mind calling here, which is what I did, and that's what I wanted to see in the solver, if my thought process here was correct on the turn, on the river, and also on that it's easy to overbluff on the river, and in this case it was actually overbluffing. But yeah, let's have a look at this hand here. So on the flop we can actually have some bets here. Forgot to mention, but I would probably just range check this flop, which should force him to check back more. But I think in-game stabbing him, you can see a lot of 5x are stabbing on the flop already. Also a lot of his diamond draws, they should stab more often than not, making it less likely. But he also needs to find a lot of these offsuit random stabs here, which he may or may not do. The turn was the 3 of diamonds. And let's see what we're supposed to do. So we use block bet, and we can still do it a decent amount of the time. You can see jacks, 10s, super high frequency betting here. If you go to our overpairs in general, except ace and kings, we're betting them at a really high frequency. And even hands like 6x, even hands like some 4x, they're still betting. And the idea here is just right, everything has equity, we fold out. Even hand like queen 9 of hearts, still has chopped out, so good if you fold out those hands. And of course these hands can improve to better pairs. And yeah, he's never folding ace, he's not folding much of his king highs, and he's supposed to raise quite a lot here. Definitely with a 5, which I definitely think he's gonna do in game, but maybe not enough with hands like queen 10 here, with no diamond, right? Or with just one spade. I think that's quite difficult to find in game for people, so I think this strategy works quite well. And then we get the 8 of diamonds on the river. And here solver likes to use a big size and actually go for larger value with a 6 or better. So that's interesting. Jacks can also go still for a large bet, where I thought because the flush completed, I only have to use a block bet. So I will change that, but definitely good to know that I underestimated how thin I can go for value here. So I used this block bet of 25% in game, and yeah, as we can see, of course, if he has a straight or a flush, he's still raising that. I think he went for a pot size rate, so maybe a bit larger, but shouldn't change too much. But we can see he has a lot of hands like this A7, which he had, the Ace-8, the Ace-9, the Ace-10, the Ace-Jacks, the King-Queens, King-Jack. That definitely can raise some of the time, and he definitely should. But it's easy to maybe, you know, look at a hand like this one and you know that you're not good at showdown and just always raise it, or raise it too often rather. And yeah, facing then a raise like this one, of course Jack's not the best bluff catcher, especially if we increase the sizing to a pot size, which is what he used in game. If I remember correctly, you know, our pots become worse, and Jacks, actually it doesn't matter too much whether you have a diamond or not, because you know they block value and bluff at the same time. They're all sort of indifferent bluff catchers here, but low frequency calls here. But yeah, I think if somebody's over bluffing, right, if we add a couple more combinations, I mean, we could actually do that, right? And if we just note lock and say just one of these hands he always raises when he has, let me see, no, that's not what I wanted to do. If we go in here, and I think I need to click like this, and we say Ace-9 with a diamond always raises. Ace-9 with a diamond. Leave all the other combos the same. I don't think it takes too much here. Maybe we should add one more Ace-10. Yeah, suddenly all of our over pairs become pure calls, right? And the only thing we did here was, you know, give him one of these combinations pure. And he's already over bluffing, right? Because he simply doesn't have enough value to support this large raise. So you saw how quickly it became from a losing slash break even call to a printing call here with Jacks, or with any overpair, with any bluff catcher for that matter, right? So yeah, think a spot where, you know, typical spot blind where it's quite easy to get out of line. Now, did he get out of line? We don't know, because the solver actually, I think, yeah, had the A7 in there beforehand, so you know he picked a good combination there. He also blocked the 7-5, which is definitely an advantage of the A7. So maybe he is balanced in his frequency, but I think for most humans it's quite a difficult spot to be balanced there, and therefore I made the call. All right, that's the first hand. Interesting one to start off at 500 NL. Now I think the rest, or maybe there's one more at 500. Another one where maybe I did the same mistake. So we'll see in this hand another blindy blind spot. I think a lot of hands that we view are blindy blind, as those are very difficult spots and very interesting ones. So villain opens, I defend. He goes for a small c-bet. Probably not with range, but you know he can do that at a decent frequency. Don't think we want to do much else than calling. Turn, he goes for another bet. Here it's already close, facing a larger barrel. We definitely, you know, have hands with one spade that are probably better as continues. But Jack 5 doesn't block too many bluffs here. Jack 8, Jack 9, Jack 10 even. I would block quite a few bluffs that he could have. But I thought Jack 3 to Jack 6 might be hands that I still have to call. I don't have too many King X hands. I have sure pocket pairs with a spade, but because the range is so wide, I don't think this is a pure call. Maybe it's already at the mixed frequency. So I decided to call, but definitely curious to see what the solver thinks here. And on the river, he goes ahead and block bets 20% or even less. And again, another spot where, well, some people might never bluff, some people might over bluff, like maybe me in this case. But very curious to find out which kind of hands the solver uses as bluff raises here. I was thinking 2-pair hands because they don't block any value, but maybe those hands are still fine just as call, like Jack 10, King Jack probably just beats value. Maybe not anymore at this point. It's tough to say for this 20% sizing. And if we don't raise 2 pairs as bluff, I guess it comes from Jack X because he's never really bluffing a Jack. And then the side card, ideally just, you know, as low as possible or not interacting with his bluffing range. So I guess like Jack 3, Jack 4, maybe slightly better than Jack 5. But then again, right, here he also needs to be balanced and put strong hands into the small sizing. So I decided to go for a bluff raise here. And yeah, curious to see if my analysis was the correct, both on the turn and the river. I think the rest is quite standard, and luckily this time I did get it through, but yeah, curious hand nonetheless. So we have it here, blindy blind, you see 25% c-bet at a decent frequency. Jack 5 always calling, nothing too much to say there. On the king turn, I think smaller sizing also works. Yeah, so we use a slightly smaller here, but we'll input the sizing he used. 1 second, let me double check this. Where is it? Here. So on the turn he used, yeah, like a 67% sizing seems fine. Oh, maybe yeah. We get 70% sizing. And Jack 5 is still calling, right? And then Jack 8, Jack 9, Jack 10 is folding, blocking his bluffs. If we go back, a lot of his bluffs that aren't flush draws are going to be hands like 10, 9, 10, 8, 9, 8. So rather folding Jack 8 and calling Jack 6 through Jack 3 made a lot more sense, although those hands aren't printing, right? They are barely winning, but you know, still in there. Then we, as we said, we have all these pocket pairs that are still calls, all these gut shots with combo draws in this case, or flush draws themselves that we can call. Yeah, but this hand's still calling. Hand that I forgot to mention, but also makes a lot of sense, right? A7, unblocking all his bluffs, same principle as like a hand like Jack 5. And we call, and the river was the 10 of spades. Difficult for him to bluff here, and as we can see, he is allowed to basically bluff everything here, because all of his draws basically got there, but he's only betting flushes here for value. So at least for this sizing, let's give him the 20% that he used as well, to see if he can go. I guess with straights maybe could go in that sizing. No, it's not used much by the solver, so maybe he did go thinner with a hand like ace queen, trying to get value back from 2 pair. So yeah, now seeing he doesn't even value bet straights here or sets, not even for 20% sizing. I guess the solver will mainly use 2 pairs as bluff raises, because we do block some hands like the 5-4 or the 5-3 that randomly decides to barrel. But let's see. Okay, no, actually Jack 5 still in there. 2 pairs as well, Jack 7, King 7, right? They're all bluff catchers at this point. They don't block any bluffs, so they're good bluff raises. But the Jack 5 also in there, Jack 4, Jack 3 all in there at mixed frequency, and you still have to call them a lot, which is crazy. Against the larger size, yeah, we would still raise them sometimes, although same goes for like a random top pair that we floated. I guess just unblocking the bluffs is the most important part here. But it prefers against the larger size, the smaller sizing, and here prefers the 75% sizing. So again, happy with how I played this, and yeah, interesting to. Unfortunately, we didn't find out whether he's balanced or not here with this sizing, but in general, I'd rather bluff raise too much here, hoping he's not balanced, than, you know, not bluff raising this hand or mixing here and just thinking he might be balanced. So yeah, I think important to find bluff raises in spots where it's maybe also not that obvious where my bluff raises are coming from as the small blind, or as for the small blind when I'm in the big blind. Okay,